And we're doing what we love to do on a Wednesday night. West Province Sports and GT Masters. Watkins Glen International Season 7, race number 7. Joining us in the studio this evening, the voice of West Province Motorsport, Frankie Yennis. Frankie, good evening to you.
Gaza, good evening. And yes, FC, hello, Tiny from Tiny's Pit Box is here. And welcome.
FC Nibud, the man from Rage Productions in Stasi. Goeienaand, hoe gaan het?
Gaza, always lovely to be in the second gear production studio for some red out racing.
Right, so as we said, West Province Sports and GT Masters season number 7. Can you believe it? Race number 7, and it's at Watkins Glen. I think it's going to be a pretty interesting session. They've just done a 15-minute practice session, and now they've gone into qualifying. The man that you see out on circuit there, Dr. Mike Verrier, the man that's very instrumental in putting all of the iRacing together, the top level iRacing in South Africa as such. Who do we expect to see pretty much near the front of the field? That man, Graham Stephen, out there in his favorite colors. The likes of Willem Botha. Wouldn't be surprised if he's going to be in the top echelons as well. Francois Joubert, undoubtedly the man that often goes out as the teammate for Luc Lucchese when we do the 6 hours. Renier Joubert, you've got to mention him as well, because Renier Joubert has been very, very quick recently. One of the success stories out there, Ati Nagel. Nice to have him out on circuit as well. Johan Fourie, multiple South African main circuit champion, and he's in his favorite colors. He's always got that monster on his vehicle. Peter Joubert, well, I tell you what, I think that Pennzoil car, you're going to see quite a bit of it this evening. Definitely a top 10, maybe even a top 5 for him at this stage of the fight. The man himself, Luc Lucchese, the Momo colors. He, in fact, has used that color scheme on numerous occasions already during the course of his racing career. The new kid on the block, the man that does all the computer work in the background, Jaco Steyn, and he's the man that's going to be taking us to international levels in 2023 as we make our services available, not just South Africa, countrywide, but we'll be going worldwide with Second Gear TV as such, in conjunction with Second Gear Productions, and that's something to look forward to. Raymond Duggan also out there as well. And Raymond Duggan has done top 5, top 6, top 7 on a regular basis for an extended period of time. Also out there, one of our regulars, Timothy Stanton. He was overseas recently with the family. Nice to have him back, as well as Leonardo Bakari. He's in the Castrol colors. Look at that, lovely, the number 4 Castrol GTX car out there. Captain Peter van der Spey, and what a fantastic gentleman he is. He was part of the MSA prize giving that we did at Killarney not that long ago. So, Luc Lucchese FC goes to the top of the pack, and as I said that, Francois Joubert says good morning and welcome to Watkins Glen.
Yeah, the guys already starting to put up times there, and as they all put their times up, Francois Joubert goes top of the log with a 138.087. That pushes down Peter Joubert and Luc Lucchese down to second and third. Jaco Steyn already down there. He's about 9/10 of a second off of the pace of the pole sitter. Andre Steenkamp bringing it home in that 5th position. But we're still riding on board there with Francois Joubert. Now on the board with the Pennzoil car of Peter Joubert. So far, he has the second quickest time out there, just 4/10 of a second off of Francois Joubert.
Yeah, the Chevy Daytonas are the cars that they're using. That's the Corvette Daytonas, that's the prototypes. And with 4 minutes and 37 minutes done, it's still Francois Joubert that's done a 138.087. Luc Lucchese, the man that you see there, is in that 4th position, been pipped there by Johan Fourie, and he's 7/10 of a second off of Francois Joubert is Lucchese. Jaco Steyn currently in that 5th position is almost a second behind Francois Joubert as we are now halfway through the qualifying stint.
Andre Steenkamp finds himself just outside of the top 5. A nice run so far by Timothy Stanton. 1.279 off the top end of the field. Willem Botha has put in his first flying lap as well. Luke Lucchese pops it up onto the second row of the grid. Mike Verrier puts it up onto row number 5.
Well, Luke Lucchese thought he was going to put it onto P2, and then Peter Hubert said, nope, I've got other plans for you, Mr. Lucchese. And he goes and he improves on his time as well to get back into that second position. Now, you would think that Luke Lucchese would like a clean lap at this stage of the fight. You know, we've seen a couple of races earlier in the season where Luke's didn't qualify at the ends of the fields where we're used to seeing him, and that's landed him right in the middle of the pack and gotten him into trouble quite a few times. So once again, he only finds himself there in that third position, but Willem Botha is the man on the fly as well. He's currently in that fourth position, just 3/10 off the pace of our pole sitter.
Johan Engelbrecht just a little bit further back in that 16th position. He's still a long way back. Francois Hubert has got himself on the front row of the grid, so the Hubert is locking out the front row with Luc Lucchese and Willem Botha at this stage of the fight on the second row of the grid. Johan Ferry with Jaco Steyn, Andre Steenkamp on the fourth row of the grid with Ati Nagel as we watch Johan Engelbrecht. Leonardo Bakari, I think he's only done one lap so far. There's Leonardo Bakari. So I think you find the next time he comes around, he'll probably pop it a little bit further up on the grid. And Frankie, right at the back of the pack, he didn't have a very good first time out there, was Renier Hubert.
Yes, he's in that Miller-sponsored machine of his, and he's 3.3 seconds off Francois Hubert that finds himself in pit lane. So that Chevy Corvette Daytona of Hubert is there in that 19th position so far, and time is running up. There's 7 minutes done, so he's going to have to get a move on if he wants to get higher than that P19.
Luc Lucchese is going to put it up onto the second row of the grid, so he splits that Francois Peter Hubert domination on the front row. 89 thousandths of a second off there. Peter Hubert is holding on to that second row of the grid. I see Graham Stephen has popped him up onto row number 3.
Gary, you and I spoke at the last race that we think that Luke Lucchese's got a stream up of the commentary because he listened to what we said and he actually went and improved his time. He got up to, as you said, 8 hundredths of a second up there in the second position, dropping down Peter Hubert down to P3. Graham Stephen, he's done a good job so far getting it up into P5. He's half a second off of our pole sitter, but Graham Stephen, he did brilliantly well out at the last race that we had last week, and he's looking to have another strong week here in these Daytona Corvettes.
Herman Lazarus working his way around. You can see him there on the map on the right hand side. That's the 11th placed motor car, and you'll see he will now do that left-hander. He's just come out of the heel of the boot. It'll be a left-hander. He'll go right across onto the curbstones, and then yet another left-hander. That's the second last corner on the circuit, and then that right-hander coming out towards the boot. Now remember, we're already 8.5 minutes into it. Let's see, can Herman Lazarus drop into the front 5 rows of the grid?
And out there in that 11th position, 1.2 seconds off Luke Lucchese. That is the quickest man out there, 138.022 for Luke. And he is topping the leaderboard so far in this qualifying stint. 1 minute to go. And I think more or less where you see the drivers right now is where they're going to stay, but Johan Ferry is going to have to get a move on. He's 0.5 of a second off Lucchese.
He should make it. There's 50 seconds to go still.
Let's have a look and see. He's made his way out of the boot area. He's got a left-hander, then a bit of a straight, then another left-hander, which will take him down to the final right-hander. He's got 30 seconds left, so yeah, he'll be okay. Let's see if he can move himself up at least onto that second row of the grid so far. So here he comes across the line, and no, he stays in P5.
That's something else. I was just going to say, Frankie, if you predict he's going to do something different, if you said row 2, you'll go to row 1, and FC was shaking his head. He was thinking, nah, I don't think it's going to be able to do it. So 3 seconds to go, and that will bring us to the end of the qualifying session. So the format for today, Frankie, we've got 2 races, in fact, each of different lengths.
Well, apparently we got a 15-minute race, and then we got a 30-minute one after that. So the front row is Luc Lucchese and François Hubert. Second row, Pieter Hubert, Willem Botha. Row 3, Johan Fourie, FC, and Graham Stephen.
Yeah, row number 4 sees Jaco Steyn and Andre Steenkamp line up next to each other, followed by Peter van der Spey and Atti Nagel. Herman Lazarus and Timothy Stanton will bring up row number 6 with Mike Verrier and Johan Engelbrecht, rounding off row number 7.
Row 8 is Stephen McCarthy and Raymond Duggan. Row 9, Gerald Muzjay and Leonardo Bakari. And row 10, Rainier Hubert and Swiss Hubert. 10 rows, 20 drivers out there.
It's going to be a good one. I don't think François Hubert expected anybody to beat his time out in qualifying. Lucchese actually crept closer and closer, and then all of a sudden beat him by 600ths of a second. So it's going to be a close race out there as we wait for everybody to make their way to the grid. We've got Lucchese, Hubert and Botha, your top 4. Johan Fourie sits just outside of that in the 5th position, alongside Graham Stephen with Jaco Steyn, Andre Steenkamp, Peter van der Spey, and Atti Nagel. That's where your big fight's going to be for those top positions. But you've got some fast guys starting a little bit further behind. You've got the likes there of Stephen McCarthy. Mike Verrier likes working his way through the pack as well. So I'm expecting a pretty hot race out here for round number 7.
Frankie, you notice once again Swiss Hubert not having put up a time and also not on the grid yet. Let's hope that he doesn't have connectivity problems. That would have been him on the outside of the back row of the grid, but him and Raymond Duggan have not yet clicked onto the screen.
Yeah, we're missing Duggan and Swiss Hubert so far, so 18 of the 20 are in, as the safety vehicle is going to lead them off the line, and then we'll go green shortly.
A bunch of Chevrolets lined up behind a Ford Mustang. You got the Mustang safety car that will be working its way off the line. It looks like it's going to be a rolling start. So yeah, there we get the Mustang off the line. And we'll have this race underway in no time. Lucchese, Hubert and Botha, your top 4. It's all about who's going to get that car into turn number 1, into the 90 degrees first by the end of the start of this race.
Unfortunately, Raymond Duggan and Swiss Hubert, neither of them have clicked onto my system. So let's hope. But you can see it's not highlighted on the screen either. So maybe they're starting from the pit lane. I'm not too sure. I've got no knowledge of that. So here we go. The voice of West Province Motorsport, Frankie Yennis, doing what we do best, doing what we love on a Wednesday night. Take him off the line.
The lights go green and 15 minutes of action is underway, and it's Lucchese from François Hubert in that second position. Oh, Peter overdoes it. Pieter Hubert overdoes it, overcooks it, going into turn number 1, called the 90, and he will drop all the way down that leaderboard. But it's all about Luc Lucchese, François Hubert, and Willem Botha. Right behind them is Johan Fourie, then Graham Stephen, and on his case is Jaco Steyn. Jaco lost a position there to Andre Steenkamp, and he loses a position, FC, to Peter van der Spey.
Yeah, Peter van der Spey worked his way past Jaco Steyn there as well. That hits him in the Red Bull Daytona, working their way around the circuit. Then behind Steyn, you got Atti Nagel. He managed to climb a position as well, with Herman Lazarus working his way up into P10 with Mike Verrier right on their case. Look at how they're all racked, stacked and packed in there behind each other, working their way around WATKINS GLEN International for this race as we get the intervals. Oh, there's a big battle going on for that 9th. Then Herman Lazarus gets spun sideways, and that collects Mike Verrier.
Well, that's the gap between first and last. We'll get the intervals up for you shortly. Yes, Mike Verrier was involved in that situation with Lazarus, and they will drop all the way down. But Lazarus squeezed in. I think it was Atti Nagel that had a look up on the inside, FC.
Yeah, that was Lazarus looking up on the inside there of Nagel. But back to the leader of this race, Luc Lucchese, being chased down by the car there of François Hubert. Hubert currently sitting in that second position. Behind him we got Willem Botha in that bright pink and blue and black car sitting in that third position. He's got a bit of a gap between himself and the likes there of Johan Fourie. That's about half a second between the two of them as they start to lose the guys ahead of them. But what a start there for Luc Lucchese.
Oh, fly off the line there by Luc Lucchese. He's 0.6 of a second ahead there of François Hubert, who's just over a second ahead of Willem Botha. But Johan Fourie and Graham Stephen are right on the case of Botha, and Botha himself is now just under a second behind Francois Hubert.
Yeah, Graham Stephen finding himself there in that 5th position. He's half a second off the pace there of Johan Fourie. He's got that black car just in front of them there, trying his best to stick it to the back end. Then he's got a 2.5 second gap between himself and Andre Steenkamp. But Steenkamp in trouble because here comes Peter van der Spey. It's Red Bull versus Mellow Yellow. Can van der Spey make up a position here? No, he's not close enough. He's got to go sit in that outside line. But now he's going to duck back onto the inside. Can Steenkamp fend him off? No, he leaves the door open. Oh, man, missed that one as they battle it out there. But Peter van der Spey did not make it past. There he goes. Peter van der Spey made it past as we now ride on board with Mike Verrier.
Yeah, Mike Verrier is part of a bunch of motor cars that's sitting in there just behind Johan Engelbrecht. And this is a replay at van der Spey that he's making the move. So here we go back to Mike Verrier. He is one of 6 cars that's just in there behind the man in P11. That is Johan Engelbrecht, Timothy Stanton, Gerald Maget, Mike Verrier, Renier Hubert, and Stephen McCarthy. Add Leonardo Bakari to that equation as well, and they are all hunting down the 11th position of Johan Engelbrecht.
Yeah, Johan Engelbrecht definitely not safe in that position, but we're back to the front of this race. It's Lucchesi that leads. He's got 4/10 between himself and Francois Hubert. Hubert keeping him very honest, and then you see that gap 1.1 seconds from a second down to 3rd place, Willem Botha. Botha's had a brilliant run of results lately, and he's learned to keep it on the black stuff, keeping that car going. Fourie in 4th, and Graham Stephen finds himself 1.6 seconds down from Johan Fourie.
And then Peter van der Spey, that's in P6, is 3.1 seconds behind Graham Stephen, but Andre Steenkamp is keeping him very honest, and so is Jaco Steyn for that matter. Jaco right in there with Andre Steenkamp, and they're crowding the back end of the van der Spey car as we see them go into that right-hander. Peter Hubert, that's P9, he's launching a comeback after getting it all wrong there in the opening lap going into turn number 1. So there's a bit of a mountain to climb for him, but he has got Atti Nagel and Johan Engelbrecht and Timothy Stanton right in there for company.
Yeah, Mike Verrier, the next one through in the 8 call 24/7 car, runs it a bit wide, leaves the door wide open there for Gerald Maget to get closer, but Maget didn't take the gap there to try and dive up on the inside, but he is getting closer there to Mike Verrier. They've got Stephen McCarthy to keep them company with Renier Hubert and Leonardo Bakari crowding the back end there of that Chevy Daytona, and then Herman Lazarus coming off the back end of the field.
Herman Lazarus sitting there in P18. He's 1 minute 16 behind Leonardo Bakari as we go back there to the man in P4, and that is Johan Fourie. And Fourie is all over the back of the Willem Botha Corvette Stingray Daytona prototype. Into that right-hander they go. That is the inner loop. Now they're going to make their way towards that long right-hander that's called the outer loop. Then they'll drop down the chute and then work their way into the boot section.
Yeah, into the boot they go there. They're going to work their way around the boot section. It is Johan Fourie crowding the back end there of Willem Botha. Botha not buckling under the pressure at this stage of the fight, keeping it very cool and calm as they work their way around the hill of the boot section there, climbing that hill up towards the left-hander that'll take them back towards the start of the next lap. But Johan Fourie's got a bit of work to do because Willem Botha is on song in this part of the season.
Right on his case there is Johan Fourie. There you see Graham Stephen 2 seconds behind the combination of Botha and Fourie. There is Peter Hubert and Jaco Steyn, Andre Steenkamp all over the back of 6th place man Peter van der Spey. That's a trainer cars. You see going into that left-hander, using the track and a lot more. Into the final corner they go. Down the home straight, Luke Lucchesi has set the quickest lap of a 1:37.810 as Peter Hubert 0.6 of a second between himself and the man ahead of him, Jaco Steyn.
Yeah, Jaco Steyn currently sits there in that 8th place. Peter Hubert on his case. Peter Hubert could feel like he wants to kick himself for making that error at the start of this race. He was in such a good position at the start there and just didn't make that brake marker. But here, could we see a move from Johan Fourie? No, he backs out of it once again. Oh, Graham Stephen is the man. He got past Johan Fourie. Fourie must have made a mistake somewhere because he was all over the back of Botha, and then all of a sudden he dropped back and he got passed there by Graham Stephen as Graham Stephen has now found himself there. There we see the pass done by Graham Stephen, but I would like to know what was it that caused Johan Fourie to drop down 2.5 seconds off the back end of Willem Botha.
So finding himself there just behind Graham Stephen. This is a replay at Renier Hubert, going into the inner loop and doing a swapper going into the inner loop. That's that right-left right-hander coming out of the inner loop. Johan Fourie, he's gone back into P4. He's got his nose ahead there of Graham Stephen, as he now is 3.3 seconds behind Willem Botha. This is the overtaking move going into the right-hander of Johan Fourie, regaining that fourth position and just leaving no room there for Graham Stephen to play in.
I was about to say, a lot of respect between these guys, leaving enough space for each other, and then Johan Fourie changes my mind completely. But Fourie having worked his way back up into fourth, now he's got to do the work to make up 3.5 seconds to catch up to the back end there of Willem Botha. But look at this, Graham Stephen coming back up Johan Fourie. He didn't like that whatsoever, and Stephen retakes that first position and then gives it back to Johan Fourie.
Well, Attenagel is crowding the back end there of the Johan Engelbrecht car. He's got the inside line, does Engelbrecht, going into the inner loop. Timothy Stanton, Mike Verrier, they're right in there as well. But the fight rages on here between Johan Fourie and the man right behind him, Graham Stephen. They're fighting up there for P4 and 5. And as they do so, Van der Spey is getting closer. And Stanton makes the move there on Mike Verrier.
Yeah, Timothy Stanton gaining a position there on Mike Verrier. You can see the damage on the 8-call, a 24/7 Chevy Daytona out there as Timothy Stanton gained that position. Oh, somebody hard on the brakes. Who was that? That was Jaco Steyn.
Jaco, yes.
Yeah, Jaco Steyn making a big lock up there and opening the door for Pieter Hubert to claim that 8th position.
Almost 10 minutes done of this 15-minute. There is a Pieter Hubert going through on the inside as Jaco Steyn got it all wrong. So Jaco Steyn losing a position there to Pieter Hubert. So Pieter sitting up there in P8 and he's only 0.4 of a second behind the man in P7, namely Andre Steenkamp, as they race around. But Francois Hubert in turn, he has crawled ever so slightly onto the back end there of Luc Lequesi. 0.3 of a second between himself and the man you see in picture there, Luc Lequesi, as he's about to put a lap there on Herman Lazarus.
Yeah, Herman Lazarus climbs onto the brakes, keeps out of the way there of your race leader, Lequesi. Hubert never really got or let Lequesi get away at all at the front, but it looks like he is getting very, very racy now in that second position, getting closer and closer to the back end there of Lequesi, keeping him very, very humble. But look at that, Frankie. You can see some damage there. Ooh, Pieter Hubert having a major off and clipping the barrier.
Very lucky to get away with that one in that Pennzoil, Shell and Menard's outfit. Mike Verrier bouncing over the curbstones. That's a replay. He was trying to have a go there once again at Timothy Stanton in the Rico Barlow Racing, an 8-call 24/7 Daytona prototype.
These prototypes seem very, very jittery the moment you put any one of the wheels off of the racing line. It does look like it wants to step out, so a lot of the guys getting caught out by that, but you are seeing a lot of damage on some of the cars as well, even just from going over curbstones. It seems that you pick up some damage here, because, I mean, look, we know that Francois Hubert hasn't been involved in any incidents, but he's got some damage. But problems there for Jaco Steyn. He must have hit something very, very bad, because that car is going so sideways. It looks like he's in a drifting championship rather than a race.
Yeah, that thing is crabbing heavily, and there's a car on top of the barrier as well. There's 3 cars that's involved in that situation. That Jaco Steyn car is in, that car is in dire straits. He's really battling to get that thing around the circuit.
I don't know if he's going to be able to make it all the way around. Remember, there's only 3 minutes left. It's a 15-minute, the heat number. Well, how's that for drifting while you're going straight? There's something completely different. Let's see if he can actually. We should be watching the race, but this is quite classic. Let's see. Can he get it back to the pits?
He has to.
He's not even going to try it. Oh, there he goes back into the pit. There he goes into the pits.
When all else fails.
For a moment there, it looked like he didn't even want to make it into the pits. But yeah, unfortunately, this is not how Jaco Steyn wanted his race to unfold. But Graham Stephen now is starting to fall back a bit there from Johan Fourie. He's in that 5th position, 0.4 of a second off of the back end there of the Monster Energy Chevy Daytona. And yeah, not looking like he can make too much of a dent to that space. The field have spread out quite heavily at the moment. The closest battles you got is Francois Hubert on Lucchese, Stephen on Fourie, and Stephen McCarthy on Timothy Stanton.
I was going to say earlier on, don't write off Peter van der Spey. He was only 1.5 seconds behind the combination of Fourie and Stephen, so he's not totally out of it yet. Herman Lazarus, who's a lap down, is busy making his way through, going into turn number 1, and he finds himself there in P17. Here comes Johan Fourie, and there's only 0.5 of a second between him and Graham Stephen, who just put up a personal best of a 138.661.
Yeah, the guys are doing some good laps out there, but it looks like Francois Hubert is getting closer. It was down to 1/10 of a second for a moment there on Luc Lucchese. It looks like Hubert is now challenging for that lead in the last dying moments of the race. We got Lucchese and Francois Hubert battling it out, and Graham Stephen also getting closer.
Minute and 5 seconds to go before we see the checkered flag. The Just Race Daytona prototype of Francois Hubert. Car number 304, 0.5 of a second behind race leader Pantera Racing's Luc Lucchese. Graham Stephen in P5, right in the back end there of Johan Fourie, and Luc is just in there behind them. 1.5 seconds is Captain Peter van der Spey in P6.
Yeah, Captain Pete, Red Bull gives you wings, and Peter van der Spey hanging onto the back end there of the guys. Johan Engelbrecht out there in 7th. He's 10 seconds off the back end there of van der Spey. But we're heading into the closing stages of this race. 30 seconds left, and then it'll depend on where the guys are on the circuit that whether we will have another lap. Gerald Maget out there in the pink car today. The man with the most excess at the last race. As they cross the line, there is the white flag that comes out. There's one more lap to go. 9 seconds in the race, but they are now officially on the last lap.
One more lap to go for Luc Lucchese and for Francois Hubert. That's just under 0.6 of a second behind Luc Lucchese. Working their way through turn number 1. Going through the S's now. And then from there, that right-hander onto the back straight they go. Flat box down to the inner loop. There's the inner loop there, into that right, left, right. Here comes Willem Botha in that 3rd position, 3.7 seconds behind the combination of Luc Lucchese and Francois Hubert.
Yeah, then it is Willem Botha, Johan Fourie still battling out there with Graham Stephen. Stephen not letting Fourie get away with this one. They've now pulled away from Peter van der Spey. They got that gap back up to 2.8 seconds with the 10 seconds between himself and Johan Engelbrecht for that 7th. But going around the last couple of corners is the race here. There they go. They're on the flat section of the boot, heading towards the heel. That is the fourth last corner. There they now go through the hill up towards the end of the boot section. And they've got a left-hander, another left-hander, and then a right-hander. And that is the end of this race for Luc Lucchese. Can he keep it ahead of Francois Hubert? Let's watch this race unfold.
Let's have a look. There they go through that left-hander now. They've just got the little short straight. Then into the final corner. There's pit lane on the right-hand side. Sweeping through that last corner, and victory goes to Luc Lucchese, 0.6 of a second ahead of second place man Francois Hubert.
Yeah, Hubert brings it home in second. Willem Botha will cross the line in that 3rd position, 3.8 seconds down the road, with Johan Fourie in 4th, Graham Stephen in 5th place, Peter van der Spey bringing it home in 6th, and another 10 seconds down the line coming through the last corner now is the man in the car number 99, Johan Engelbrecht.
Atenagel will cross the line in P8, and he'll be just ahead there of Timothy Stanton, and he is 8/10 of a second ahead of the man that rounds off the top 10, Stephen McCarthy.
Gerald Berger brings it home in 11th position. Leonardo Bakari brings it home in 12th, with Mike Verrier in that 13th position after having a very dinged up Chevy Corvette Daytona. Reinier Joubert brings it home in 14th position, with Andre Steenkamp in 15th, and Peter Joubert, the last man on the lead lap, in that 16th position as we ride on board with Andre Steenkamp working his way into the last corner. Now he'll dive into that right-hander, clip the apex, get back onto the main straight, accelerate down the main straight, and he crosses the line.
So 16 cars on the lead lap, and here comes Peter Joubert. He's the final man on the lead lap, and he's making his way into that final right-hander, which will lead him down the home straight and towards the checkered flag and the end of his race. Well, I feel sorry for Andre Steenkamp and Peter Joubert, especially Peter Joubert. It was right at the business end of the field, FC, and then lap 1, turn 1, overshot it and ended all the way down the leaderboard.
Yeah, not the race he would have wanted, but heading directly into race number 2, this being a 30-minute race, and this is your grid for race number 2. Luc Lucchesi, the man to catch, on pole. Alongside him, Francois Joubert. Row number 2 sees Willem Botha and Johan Fourie, with Graham Stephen and Peter van der Spey lining up on row number 3, and Johan Engelbrecht and Atti Nagel row number 4, with Stanton and McCarthy loading up row number 5.
Row 6, Gerald Berger and Leonardo Bakari. Row 7, Mike Verrier and Reinier Joubert. Row 8, Andre Steenkamp and Peter Joubert. Row 9, Herman Lazarus and Jaco Steyn. And Swys Joubert and Raymond Duggan will round off the 10th row.
Right, as everybody makes their way back towards the grid for the feature race. Everybody's lined up there. I see one gap out on the, that is Johan Engelbrecht that has made it out there. Some news here. Raymond Duggan was supposed to be on this race, but his inverter is giving him some issues there. Load shedding hit, so it looks like we've lost Raymond Duggan, but he's out there and he's moving, so not too sure what that message is about.
Well, Johan Engelbrecht is not out there.
That was probably earlier on. Our radio man from Killarney International Raceway, doing what he does best, searching for information all the time. Well done, Tiny. And, well, yep, they all look like they're out there. See Johan Engelbrecht that is showing up at the back of the pack. And he is, in fact, in the pit lane at the moment.
But going down the main straight now, and we go green, and we are racing, and immediately off the line, it looks like they all caught Francois Joubert napping as Willem Botha has moved up into P2. Now you've got to go hard on the brakes, get dinged from the back there by Graham Stephen. But Botha and Johan Fourie had the perfect start.
Yeah, and Peter van der Spey is all over the back end there of Graham Stephen. There is Francois Joubert, the man that sits in that 4th position. Right ahead of him, we have got Johan Fourie, and ahead of Fourie, we have got Willem Botha, and then that Momo car going through the inner loop is your race leader, Luc Lucchesi, working his way now towards the outer loop, and there's drama. There's drama. It is Willem Botha and Graham Stephen.
Yeah, Willem Botha lost the tail end there, and then we see Graham Stephen also getting collected in that as they all drop way down, and then Timothy Stanton also getting involved there. Let's have a look here at the replay. What happened? This is on board with Graham Stephen. It's Willem Botha lost the tail end. Looked like he was going to collect half the field. Graham Stephen then spun it in a sympathy there for Willem Botha.
Well, and then Timothy Stanton, he made contact there with Atti Nagel and then got sent packing down into turn number 1 called the 90. Not exactly where Stanton wanted to find himself. Well, all happening out there on lap number 1. Timothy Stanton all the way down in P19. Let's see if he can continue this one. But it's all about that man, Luc Lucchesi. Oh, and Francis! Johan Fourie.
That's Johan Fourie, yeah.
Johan Fourie is gone.
That was a major off. There was contact between him and Francois Joubert. Was there contact? Well, I need to see another. No, I need to see another angle. I don't know if there was contact. That just looked like he came in very, very hot and lost the tail end.
I don't know. To me, there was contact between the two of them. Let's see if we can pick up another angle As there is Hubert.
No, there was no
That-
contact.
Jeez, that
is
was
what
well
they-
picked up.
That is what they call netcode, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Ah.
Well picked up there, FC. Well done.
So,
Luke
yeah,
Lekese, the
losing.
man that's up front and doing a brilliant job. Let's just have a look at the gaps that they've got between them at this stage of the fight. There you go. Luke Lekese, the man that's leading them out. Timothy Stanton is in fact in the pits. Francois Hubert is still in that second position. And Peter van der Spey, lovely. Captain Pete in third position.
Captain Pete keeping his nose clean out there at the moment, and he's worked his way into a top 3 position. It's been a while since he could say that. He's had a couple of scrappy races out there. Ati Nagel also being brilliant out there in 4th. Mike Verrier up into 5th position.
Well done there to Mike, but look at them racked and stacked in there behind him. Stephen McCarthy, and then the Pennzoil outfit of Peter Hubert and Andre Steenkamp and Gerald Maget. The Frenchman is right in there as well as they go into that right-hander, and there's nothing separating these 4-5 drivers from Mike Verrier. That is in P5, 2.8 seconds behind Ati Nagel.
Rainier Hubert currently sitting out there in 11th position. Ooh, getting the tail wagging out there is Rainier Hubert in the Miller's car. Then you riding aboard there with Herman Lazarus. He's out in 14th position, 0.4 of a second off of Swayze Hubert, who is just ahead of them there. Then you got Graham Stephen, who's had a very, very bad start there, and problems for Swayze Hubert. And now, who goes? That is
McCarthy.
McCarthy. That, no,
Yes,
was that?
no.
Yes. Stephen
Yes,
McCarthy
it is.
going wide there.
Well, Stephen McCarthy in P8, and he has got Gerald Maget right in there behind him. Remember, Gerald is the man that was racing the pink livery today. As we ride aboard here with RAD Racing's Raymond Duggan in the replay, and there was contact between himself and 1 or 2 other cars out there. That just happened very, very quickly. I just all of a sudden saw the replay come through.
Yeah, but Stephen McCarthy currently finding himself out there in 8th position in the Mountain Dew Daytona as he works his way around the Watkins Glen, or also known as the Glen, out in the United States. Peter Hubert having a much better run at it this time around in race number 2. He finds himself there in 6th position, but it could have been so much higher up for him was it not for that bad luck. He's challenging Mike Verrier for that 5th position. It's down to 0.2 of a second. Late on the brakes he goes, drops back a little bit. Now he's going to duck for the inside. Mike Verrier leaves the door open, tries to close it off. Oh, they were almost side by side. Will Hubert get a better line going into the next corner as he tries to hang on to the back there of Mike Verrier?
Well, it's a lovely fight there between Peter Hubert and Mike Verrier. Andre Steenkamp and Stephen McCarthy is joining this fight as well. 137.954, the quickest man out there is your race leader, Luke Lekese.
Lekese puts up the fastest time of a 137.954 as Mike Verrier just fends off the attack there from Peter Hubert. But while they're battling it out, Luke is joining the fight, Frankie. It's Andre Steenkamp as Hubert goes up on the inside of Mike Verrier, but Verrier not giving up yet. There's contact! There's contact between the two of them, and while the two dogs fight, the third comes and takes the bone.
Well, I was just going to say they're going to have to be careful not to make contact, and there it happened. And Andre Steenkamp now finds himself ahead of all of them, 5.4 seconds now behind Ati Nagel. So Andre Steenkamp in the mellow yellow outfit, he'll be happy with that. The Red Sea just parted for him, and he dove through and moves up there into P6 with P5, and Peter Hubert and Mike Verrier in there just behind him. But now FC, it's a train of cars that you see there in picture.
It's a massive train as Gerald Maget opens up the door. This opens the door for Jaco Steyn. We know how quick Jaco Steyn can be. You cannot leave a door open for him that wide and not expect him to take that gap. Just 0.2 of a second between Maget and Steyn for that battle for 9th. Well, he got very close. There is Jaco Steyn going for that. But there's problems at the front between Lekese. Lekese made a mistake. Drops down to 3rd.
Well, and now he's dropping all the way. Where is
Peter
he
van der
going?
Spey also
Yes.
getting troubles.
Luke Lekese is in the pits. He's in last position and he's in the pit area. Let's have a look and see. Pantera Racing's Luke Lekese sitting out there in P1 and clipping that curbstone there and turning himself around, and then rejoining and smashing into Peter
come
van der
on.
Spey. Oh, you've got to feel sorry for Van der Spey.
I've got to say, that was a bit of an amateur move. This is the second week in a row we see Lucchese go back onto the circuit and causing the end of somebody else's race.
Oh man, I feel so sorry for Peter. He did nothing but nothing wrong to deserve that.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're a big mistake, and that has now put Francois Hubert with a big smile on his face up into P1, 4 seconds ahead of Ati Nachel. Nobody close to challenge him. There comes your second place man now in car number 9, and they've got another 4 seconds between himself and Peter Hubert.
Well, there'll be some very red faces in some rigs. I know Van der Spey will be very unhappy with that, but either way, let's get back to the fight we see out there on track. That is Andre Steenkamp sitting in P4, 1.1 seconds behind him is Mike Verrier, and here come the train of cars, led there by Stephen McCarthy, Jaco Steyn, Willem Botha and Gerald Murray, and slowly but surely creeping up is the man in P10, 3.8 seconds behind Murray is Johan Fourie.
Yeah, Johan Fourie being way down from where we used to see him, but there's a massive battle going on here for that 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th position. As you can see from the back of Stephen McCarthy's car, you got Jaco Steyn and Willem Botha battling it out. It's Botha and McCarthy and Steyn all virtually side by side, 3 abreast coming down the main straight, and up on the inside goes Willem Botha, making up 2 positions.
Willem says, you guys continue, I'm going to take this position. But Jaco Steyn is in there. Jaco Steyn's not going to give up the fight. And now it's Jaco Steyn that sits side by side with Botha. Botha still got the line. And while they are fighting FC, this is allowing the Doc to escape down the road.
Yeah, Mike Verrier must be sitting with a big smile on his face because he knows, well, as long as they battle each other, they're not going to come after me. Willem Botha sitting in that 6th position. Jaco Steyn and Stephen McCarthy and Gerald Murray now all there tucked in underneath each other's back wings, trying to fight it out there. But Willem Botha currently in 6th, with Steyn in 7th, McCarthy in 8th, Murray in 9th, and Johan Fourie getting the opportunity to catch the back end of this fight.
Yeah, 1.6 seconds is Fourie behind Murray, but Jaco Steyn almost taken out the back end there of the Botha Daytona prototype. Man, we've only done, nearly 10 minutes. There's 20 minutes of this drama left, and FC presumably a fuel stop as well.
Yeah, I do think we're going to see a fuel stop out there, but some nice clean racing out there today.
Very clean, yes.
Stephen McCarthy in that 8th position, now dropping back a bit there from Jaco Steyn, and keeping the same distance between himself and Murray as well. But look at that time, Frankie, of Johan Fourie. That's dropping. Fourie is getting closer and closer, and we'll be seeing some overtakes here in this pack.
Yeah, there you see him come through. Just behind him is Graham Stephen. Don't write off Graham Stephen. Graham Stephen can still have a say in this one as well. But Peter Hubert in P3, 4 seconds behind Ati Nachel. It's a better second outing for Hubert after that disastrous 15-minute race that we had.
Well, Peter Hubert, you can see up 13 positions. Andre Steenkamp up 11 positions, 8 by Mike Verrier. But remember, there was that incident earlier on where you had the front runners, Luke Lucchese, that spun off. He came across the track. It took Peter van der Spey out. Other people had to slow down as well. That just rocketed this group a little bit higher up. But from Johan Fourie in that 10th position up to Willem Botha, nothing much in it whatsoever. Looking forward from that position, there's Johan Fourie. And what can he see in front of him? Look at that. Tantalizing. Gerald Murray, Stephen McCarthy, Jaco Steyn and Willem Botha.
And just ahead of them is Mike Verrier, because they're all hunting down that 5th position of Mike Verrier as we ride aboard here with Johan Fourie, and he's right on the back end there of that Gerald Murray Daytona prototype.
Yeah, well, if you have anybody out there that can smell blood in the water, that can know that he can make up positions, it's this man right here in the Monster Energy Daytona. It is Johan Fourie. You can bet your bottom dollar he's not going to be sitting right there for too much longer. He's right tucked in underneath that wing of Gerald Mauger. Mauger is going to be starting to feel the pressure because Johan Fourie wants to get a lot closer. There he goes now, up on the inside. He's going to move alongside Gerald Mauger. Virtually nothing between the two of them. Late on the brakes goes Fourie and up into P9.
Lovely line through turn 1 goes Johan Fourie. Now he moves up there into that 9th position, and Stephen McCarthy will be his next victim. Jaco Steyn in turn is having a fight here with Mike Verrier, and right ahead of them is Willem Botha. So there's a massive fight going on here for P5.
Massive fight out there for P5, as you say, Frankie, with Willem Botha sitting in that 5th position. Mike Verrier is right there by him as well, but Jaco Steyn is the man applying pressure to Mike Verrier. Verrier might actually be losing out on the back end there of Willem Botha now as he runs wide and opens the door for Jaco Steyn, and Steyn moves up into P6.
Yeah, here he comes through, and not much. That somebody going off that I think is Leonardo Bakari, that's sitting in 19th position in that Castrol car. Yeah, that was Leonardo on the dirt, and wham, into the side of the barrier goes Bakari.
Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. As Steyn runs wide, and that opens the door back up for Mike Verrier, but they're battling so hard for that 6th and 7th position, and while they're fighting it out there, it is Willem Botha that gets away. Johan Fourie up another position. He's up on the inside there of Stephen McCarthy, as everybody just battles it out there. That's the replay of Mike Verrier coming back at Jaco Steyn.
Well, I'll tell you what, these guys are using Watkins Glen circuit. That's just outside the city of New York is Watkins Glen. There is Jaco in that 6th position, but right back to the man that sits there in P1, and that is Francois Hubert, and he's nearly 6.5 seconds ahead of that man in 2nd position, Ati Nagel.
Ati Nagel, having kept his nose clean, is sitting there in that 2nd position. Peter Hubert on his own there in that 3rd place. He's 1.6 seconds ahead of the 4th place André Steenkamp. Steenkamp made up 11 positions from the start of this race in the Melo yellow car, and he's got about 2 seconds between himself and 5th place Willem Botha.
Right, there is Willem Botha. He's going to put a lap on Johan Engelbrecht shortly. Willem Botha sitting out there in that 5th position. Jaco Steyn there in P6. And here they come. And Fourie's got his nose ahead of Verrier. Johan Fourie's got his nose ahead there of Mike Verrier. Johan going up into P7. And he's a second behind Jaco Steyn.
Yeah, behind Jaco Steyn is Johan Fourie. Fourie's going to be working very hard to catch up to the back end there of Steyn. There wasn't too much between the two of them in qualifying, so Fourie's going to have to work really hard. But as you can see, these Daytona prototypes picking up damage quite easily, especially with the amount of rubbing that's happening out there, and that all affects how these cars handle. These are prototype cars being extremely sensitive to any change of a racing line, getting it off onto the grass, or even just dinging it and affecting the aero.
Watch out here for Graham Stephen. Here he comes. He's going to make a move on Stephen McCarthy, going into the right-hander, and into 9th position goes Graham Stephen.
Yeah, Graham Stephen working his way back up into P9 after having that dismal first lap in the inner loop section. He's going to fight his way back. He came off the tail end of the field back up into 9th. He's about half a second off of Mike Verrier, busy catching him, but Stephen McCarthy's not letting him go. Stephen McCarthy trying to come back at him into the inner loop they go, and Stephen says, no, you're going to have to be a little bit closer if you want to retake this position.
Somebody playing on the dirt there on the left-hand side of the screen will try and pick up with that. That's coming out of the outer loop, now diving down into that left-hander. That's the chute, which will take them to the top end of the boot. That's where they are now. Then they'll move into that right-hander. That is the toe of the boot. And that was Johan Engelbrecht in that 99 car that was all over the place.
What a beautiful pirouette by Johan Engelbrecht. Word of the day, pirouette.
Pirouette.
Stephen McCarthy out there in the Mountain Dew car, having a very, very good race out there in that 10th position. Graham Stephen trying to make a move there on Mike Verrier. Verrier dropping down from 5th all the way down to 8th. And now he's got the attacking Graham Stephen all over the back end of the 8 Call 24/7 car, working their way around Watkins Glen. It is Mike Verrier, Graham Stephen, and here comes Stephen McCarthy as well.
Yeah, Stephen McCarthy 8/10 of a second behind Graham Stephen, who's only 3/10 of a second behind Mike Verrier, that sits out there in P8, but he's not close enough to make a move going into the 90. That is turn number 1. Now they'll have a bit of a shoot. Now he looks up on the inside as they go into turn number 2 and working their way towards the S's. And Graham Stephen is in that 8th position. There's a right-handed sweep which will take them onto that back main. There they go, which will lead them towards the inner loop. And Verrier's not done. Verrier's not done. They're side by side in the inner loop. But it is still Graham Stephen that holds that position ahead of Mike Verrier, followed by Stephen McCarthy.
Yeah, that was set into motion by Mike Verrier running wide, coming out of the S's. And just left the door wide open. Graham said, thank you, if you're going to leave the door open, I'm going to take the gap.
Yep.
And they battled hard, but Graham Stephen just having the better toe down the circuit as he's now worked his way up into 8th position. Let's have a look here what happened to Leonardo Bakari coming down the main straight into turn number 1 into the 90. Just completely missed the brake marker and put that car off into the runoff area.
But there's damage on the left-hand back of that motor car. And I think he jumped directly back to pits, did Leonardo Bakari. And that's obviously because of that damage that he's got on the left rear corner.
I'm looking at the leaderboard. Jaco Steyn in P6. Well, he has got trouble. It's called Johan Fourie. And Fourie is 2/10 of a second behind Jaco Steyn. And shortly he'll be trying to make the move there on Jaco to take that 6th position away from him. Here he comes, FC.
Closer and closer, the monster car comes to the back end there of Jaco Steyn. He's all over the back bumper there of Jaco Steyn. Steyn's going to have to do the absorption of a lifetime. Now it's Fourie ducking left and ducking right to see where he can find a gap to come through. He's right on that back bumper, goes and sits on the outside as they make their way down the back straight. They're going to go to the inner loop and around the outside. A brilliant pass there by Johan Fourie into the inner loop.
Fourie goes up into P6. Through the inner loop they go now. Through the gearbox. Down the outer loop. It's all downhill from here. Down the chute they go. Slight rise. Then dip right down again into the left-hander. That will take them onto the top end of the boot. Then there'll be a hairpin down, a banked hairpin right-hander. That is the toe of the boot as the two of them work their way through the toe of the boot, the base of the boot, and then into the heel of the boot.
Yeah, into the heel they go. But riding on board there with Stephen McCarthy in the Mountain Dew car. He sits there behind a Mike Verrier. He can smell that maybe he can get close to, if he can get close to Mike Verrier, he can maybe get a nose up on the inside. But compared to some of the other cars, there's not a mark on that Mountain Dew car.
No, that car looks awesome. The 44 there of McCarthy. But Willem Botha in P5, he's only 2/10 of a second behind the 46 car of Andre Steenkamp. There is Willem Botha in the 23, the man from Toyota Gazoo Racing, as he is crowding the back end there of Steenkamp's car going into that right-hander.
What a recovery drive from Willem Botha as well. We saw him having that incident in the first lap in the inner loop section, and basically dropping towards the back end of the field, and already with 20 minutes done, working his way back up into that 5th position. Now battling out there as he goes up on the inside there of Andre Steenkamp, and he takes that position. Going into the inner loop section is Willem Botha, moving up into 4th position.
Right, moving up into P4, now going into the right-hander, that is the outer loop. And Stephen McCarthy there in P10, he's looking for an overtaking maneuver here on Mike Verrier. That's in P9, there's 5/10 of a second separating them, and 1.3 seconds down the road ahead of them is Graham Stephen.
Yeah, Graham Stephen in that 8th position, 4 seconds off the pace of Jaco Steyn. Steyn is stuck in there behind Johan Fourie, as Fourie's managed to get past that car up into 6th position. And now Fourie is hunting down the car there of Andre Steenkamp.
As a matter of fact, Jaco Steyn has gone up 11 positions in this race, and Andre Steenkamp has gone up 10 positions, so well done to them. But Johan Fourie is being hassled here by Jaco Steyn. The man in P7, Jaco Steyn, only 6/10 of a second separating himself from the man ahead of him, Johan Fourie.
Yeah, they were battling it out there for that 6th position not too long ago. Fourie taking that position off of Steyn as Fourie now gets his head down, chases down the car in that 5th position. That is Andre Steenkamp in the mellow yellow car. Steenkamp having a pretty good meeting out here in these Chevy Corvette Daytonas. But the man on the move, Willem Botha, he's already got that down to 1.9 seconds on the back end there of Peter Hubert. What a drive that would be, starting in the top 4, dropping, moving up into the top 3 by the start of the race, dropping down to the back end of the field and already back up into 4th and possibly a top 3 position.
Drive of the day candidate so far for Willem Botha as he sits there in that 4th position. Now it's under a second that he's closing up on Peter Hubert, but Andre Steenkamp, even though Willem is closing up on Peter, Andre Steenkamp in P5 is not letting Botha get away from him. He's saying, Willem, you go, I go, and we both try and catch Peter Hubert.
We tried to catch Peter Hubert, but we tried to get away from Johan Fourie as well.
That too.
Yeah. Talking about Johan Fourie, last lap 138.7. Andre Steenkamp 139.8, but remember there was that changeover in position. So on the last lap, it is pretty much 1.1 seconds quicker by Johan Fourie. If he can carry on with that, 3 laps from now, it would be lap number 18. We're into 23 of 30 minutes. It's not impossible that Johan Fourie can still pick up the tail end of Andre Steenkamp. Steenkamp is 38.552, a 38.4 by Johan Fourie. Only a 10th that he could take out at that point. Unfortunately, Dr. Mike Verrier, well, he has lost the circuit.
So, Dr. Mike Verrier, this is a replay in the Rico Barlow Racing 8 call 24/7, and that is a swapper going into that right-hander, and he has lost the position there as the Doc.
Yeah, so as the time starts tumbling here, we're going to be reaching the end of this race within the next 6 minutes or so. A big question that you asked earlier, Frankie, is will we see a fuel stop? I predict that if we do see stops, it should be around about now that we start seeing those stops. The question is, will we see it?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. The reason why I'm saying that is they were supposed to start on 50% fuel. That got changed to 100%. Now we've seen races of an hour that they do 30 minutes before, 35 even before they stop. And if you get 100% fuel with only 30 minutes, I don't think they're going to do any routine pit stops.
So a straight shootout to the finish flag in about 5 minutes from now. As you ride aboard there with Gerald Mauger, he finds himself in that 13th position now as he gains a position. Problems there for Rainier Hubert in the Miller's car. Oh, some of these cars looking like they've taken a bit of a punch. Just got it that back end onto the grass, and that puts that Chevy Daytona into a spin.
Oh, that was the car I saw on the lawn when that group of cars went through. That is Rainier Hubert in that Miller outfit. Gerald Mauger in that 13th position, 7/10 of a second separating himself. And Swiss Hubert. Here comes Gerald Mauger. Swiss is out there in that target Daytona. And he is just ahead there of Gerald, just under a second ahead of Mauger.
Oh, Jaco Steyn using some very creative lines out there, some very bumpy lines to try and make up as much possible time on the back end there of Johan Fourie to try and get back into that 6th position. But Fourie is on the hunt. He's trying to catch the back end there of Andre Steenkamp. Not really taking too much time out of him. It's been in the 2.2 seconds for the last lap or two. So Johan Fourie not really making any gains on Steenkamp, but Jaco Steyn keeping Fourie honest.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there's no ways that Fourie can go after Steenkamp. He has to defend that 6th position because he knows that Jaco Steyn means business. But if Jaco's going to put that thing there, then it's going to lose time to Fourie, and he has. It's now a 1.2 second gap just because he ran slightly wide.
Yeah, Jan Engelbrecht creating another quite expensive lawnmower with that Daytona. But look at that, guys. Battle for second and third. Peter Hubert is all over Ati Nagel.
Yeah, that's the only real other fight out here, and here we go. There is Ati Nagel. There is Peter Hubert, and only 1.3 seconds behind them in P4 is Willem Botha with 3 minutes left to go. FC, is it possible for Willem Botha to steal that third position away?
Look,
it's
as
not
long as
impossible.
As long as Peter Hubert and Ati Nagel battle it out. Oh! Very wide off the circuit he goes, and that now opens the door for Botha to catch up to the back. And there's a lot of other cars. Andre Steenkamp gets collected in that as Johan Fourie and Jaco Steyn gets past him. But Willem Botha on the hunt now. Let's have a look at this replay. Yeah, Steenkamp just got the tail end of that car onto the grass as well. And that's what opened the whole domino effect here for the guys to come barreling through. Oh, what a bad luck piece there for Andre Steenkamp.
We just saw, and Graham Stephen creams the back end there of that Steenkamp car. Wow, that is not exactly what he wanted, but he just slammed into the side of that machine.
And now, yeah, there's definitely some damage for Peter Hubert, because that's now all over the show. He just lost his whole rhythm. He's now dropped all the way down to 6. And man, oh man, what did I say? Willem Botha, the man on the move, back into third position.
Well, Willem Botha, he is definitely the man that will, as far as I'm concerned, driver of the day. And this is the over, but he actually nudged Peter out the way.
Yeah, I think Willem said, hey, look, listen, bud, you made a bit of a mistake. Now you're blocking me back here, so just get out of the way, as he squeezed his way past there. Peter Hubert now having dropped all the way down to 6. He didn't have a brilliant first race out there, made that big mistake at the start of the race, but this man has not made a single mistake out there. Francois Hubert in the 304 car leads this one. He's got 15 seconds between himself and this man, Ati Nagel.
Yeah, it's a huge lead that he's got on Ati Nagel there. As a matter of fact, it's only Graham Stephen and Stephen McCarthy and Mouget and Swais Hubert has got some kind of a fight out there with 1 minute left on the clock. But Willem Botha has done it right. There's 2.2 seconds between himself and Johan Fourie. And Johan and Jaco Steyn were gifted those positions with that situation that happened a lap or so. And they just said thank you very much, and through they came. And Peter Hubert, who was looking so good for a top 3, finds himself now in P6, 7.6 seconds ahead of Graham Stephen.
Yeah, Stephen McCarthy.
Stephen McCarthy.
Yeah, Stephen McCarthy out there, 7 seconds behind Peter Hubert. Graham Stephen is all over the back end there of Stephen McCarthy. The is that the white flag? Yeah, white flag out for your race leader. This is the start of the last lap for Francois Hubert. Ati Nagel will make his way around that final corner now and start his last lap as we are almost at the end of this race. There we go, across the line now. Starting at Willem Botha. Botha dives into the pit lane.
With the time that's up, this is the final lap, and Willem Botha pits out of P3. What the heck is going on here?
Is that a pit or is that a drive-through?
Could be a drive-through penalty.
Possibly.
It's not impossible.
Yes, it is. He just drove all the way through and out the other side. Remember, 17 errors will give you a drive-through.
That'll be interesting, Gary. If you can just bring us the errors up there, we can see if that is indeed the case. Remember, no disqualification, but 17 errors will bring you into the pits for a drive-through.
Yep. Well, there's 17 for Renier Hubert.
That says 4 for Botha, so I'm not sure what happened there.
Maybe he was on 21 minus 17 for going through. It's quite possible. You never know. But Francois Hubert, he is on the last lap right now, and there you see him. There's the number 1 with the green circle around it. And Frankie, take him to the line.
Yeah, he's got one right-hander to go. There's the pit entrance on his right-hand side. And the man in car number 304 has done it all right. Francois Hubert is the winner of the feature race as he wins that one nearly 18 seconds ahead of Atinagel that will finish in P2.
Yeah, through the final corner goes your second place man now, Atinagel, onto the main straight, and across the line he'll come now to finish this race. Johan Fourie has now brought it up into third position. A quiet race there for Johan Fourie in third. Jaco Steyn in fourth. Then this battle's not over here. This is not a track position, but Peter Hubert brings it home in that fifth position, followed by Stephen McCarthy across the line with not a mark on that Mountain Dew car, followed by Mike Verrier. Willem Botha brings it home in eighth.
Yeah, then Herman Lazarus, he will finish there in ninth. Graham Stephen is in pit lane also on the final lap. And will he be classified as 10th? I don't quite know if the timekeeping device goes all the way through there.
It does. It just showed him as
finishing
10th. Yeah.
With the Gerald Murger, Swiss Hubert finishing in P11 and 12. Oh, and Luke Lucchesi coming home in P13, 11 seconds behind Swiss Hubert.
Yeah, it's Luke Lucchesi in 30th. Timothy Stanton out there in the Roland's Manifolds green car in 14th. He'll bring it across the line in 14th with Andre Steenkamp right on his tail. Renier Hubert will bring it home in 16th position, and the last man on the lead lap.
Yeah, here comes Renier Hubert in P16, and yeah, as FC said, the last driver out on the lead lap. Well, I gotta feel sorry for Peter van der Spy. Really.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That would be my bad luck.
Bad luck for the day, definitely, Peter van der Spy. And you know what? Purely just because he kept his nose clean, kept out of trouble, did what he had to do, my driver of the day has to go to Francois Hubert.
Yes, well, that was just a runaway victory, and I think the guy with the neatest car, that has to go to Stephen McCarthy.
Atinagel, as we said, the success story of 2022 coming through in that second position. Johan Fourie, as always, somehow finding a way and getting himself up into a top three. Jaco Steyn once again in the top five. Peter Hubert, on a regular basis now, finds himself in the top fives.
Yeah, so what a race this has been here for the Western Province Sports and GT Masters Series, race number 7 of season 7, and it will be interesting to see who ends where after this season. This has been a weird season in terms of who ends on the podium and who collects which points. I would really like to see the points table at some other stage.
As a matter of interest, that stand that was shown there now by Gary, I love the livery behind that stand.
The Jackie Stewart.
Sir Jackie Stewart grandstand. Lovely.
FC, your driver of the day and bad luck?
Oh, look, like I said, Francois Hubert, you can't fault the man. But now realizing that Atinagel also had a brilliant race, I would have to say it's a shared driver of the day today between Francois Hubert and Atinagel. Bad luck, definitely, Captain Pete. And, not much more to say.
There we go. The voice of West Province Motorsport, Frankie Yennis.
Fully agree with FC on Francois and Ati, and definitely bad luck for Peter van der Spy. He didn't do anything wrong to deserve what happened to him.
Graham Stephen could have been a lot higher up. He finds himself in the top 10. Herman Lazarus will be happy with that 9th. Willem Botha, well, it was some good, some bad. Mike Verrier coming into play once again. Him and Stephen McCarthy in the Sujin Properties and SS Racing and the Rico Barlow Racing 8 Call 24/7 of Mike Verrier. 6th and 7th position. I think they'll be pretty chuffed with that. Luke Lucchesi trying to recover, got himself back to that 13th place. Andre Steenkamp, I think he'll be pretty disappointed because he was very much on the pace. Finds himself in the feature race a long way down, just behind Timothy Stanton. Frankie, closing word from your side.
Brilliant. That 15 minutes flew by, and so did the half an hour as well. And as FC was saying, very nervous race cars. You've got to know your thing. But well done to all of them. And we move on to next Wednesday.
FC, from your side, as we just have a quick shofty at the Heat 1 results.
Yeah, look, it's an honour and a pleasure to be here on a Wednesday night and commentate on some of the best iRacing drivers in South Africa on a weekly basis. So, yeah, heat number one saw a brilliant race out there. Luke Lucchese did everything that he was supposed to do, put it in the right positions, and ran away with it there with Francois Hubert, keeping him honest. Willem Botha had a brilliant time out there. Unfortunately, it all ended up going pear-shaped for him in that final race, but still a good result for him there. But yeah, I look forward to the next one.
Having a look at Francois Hubert, second in that one, and then coming out tops in this one, the highest point scorer for tonight. From our side, Gary Fleming, Second Gear Productions, and moving along to Second Gear TV in 2023 and going international as well. Look forward to bringing you the information once Jaco Stein's got that lot all in place. We'll be back with you next week, same time, from another circuit and a different car, but back with the West Province Sports and GT Masters. Thanks for watching. Good night to you, one and all.